As you've probably experienced in your daily life, things can speed up, things can slow down, and that's where we're going to start talking about this idea of acceleration. So acceleration is defined as the rate of change of velocity with respect to time. This means it is also a vector. There's a how much and which direction. And in colloquial language is how much something speeds up or slows down. We will calculate this or measure this in the units of meters per second squared. And that looks like m over s squared. In other words, it's kind of like if we take the meters per second and divide by seconds. The variable for acceleration is lowercase a. And then if you want to calculate average acceleration, again, using that a bar language we've talked about before, that's going to be delta v over delta t, which can also be written as v minus v initial over t minus t initial. So that's what the definition of acceleration is, but what we need to talk about is speeding up and slowing down. If you're accelerating, that does not necessarily mean speeding up. Negative acceleration also does not necessarily mean slowing down. And as a side note that just I want to throw out here, I wouldn't necessarily write this down, you don't need to worry about it. Acceleration can happen with constant speed. Because all that we care about for acceleration is the velocity changing. So if you're speeding up, that will be acceleration. If you're slowing down, that's acceleration. If you're changing direction, that's acceleration. Positive and negative don't necessarily tell you what's happening in those cases. In order to know whether something's speeding up or slowing down, you have to compare the velocity and the acceleration. Whoops. If velocity and acceleration are same direction, that will mean speeding up. If velocity and acceleration are opposite direction, that will mean slowing down. And if they are in perpendicular directions, that will mean changing direction. The main thing I want you to think about and kind of stick in your brain though right now is just that if I say something's accelerating, that doesn't mean speeding up. In colloquial English, it does, but in physics, it just means changing your velocity. If you see acceleration but it's got a negative sign on it, that does not necessarily mean slowing down. It just means that its velocity is changing in the negative direction. And that's what acceleration tells you. How will the velocity be a little bit later? So a positive velocity with a positive acceleration, you're going to have more positive velocity later, so you're going to speed up. A positive velocity with a negative acceleration means that your velocity needs to become more negative over time, which means it needs to become less positive, which will in that case be slowing down. But a negative velocity pointed that way and a negative acceleration pointed that way means that as time goes on, it gets more velocity that way, which is speeding up. This is a little weird. It's something that's probably easier to talk through in person. So if you're not sure, raise your hand, flag me down, we'll talk through it. And I can also kind of visually show you some things in class. But for now, that takes care of acceleration.